Hey, this is Mark Patton from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. How you doing? Oh, sure. Hey, well, I've been asked to talk about my career a little bit. I was originally discovered by Robert Altman in New York City in 1981, 1982, and was on Broadway and Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean, with which was Cher and Sandy Dennis, Karen Black, Kathy Bates, Marta Heflin, and myself. And we went on and filmed that movie, which won the Cannes Film Festival. And that took me out to California for the first time. And I had a nice film career, television. I almost did the first Nightmare on Elm Street, and then I was asked to star in the second Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Revenge, where I played Jesse, and I think that's why I'm here tonight to talk about that. So, and that and Never Sleep Again. And then my new documentary, which is called There Is No Jesse. So that's basically it. I'm just like one or two, three hit wonder, but I picked out some really fabulous movies to do. So here we are all these years later still talking about them. And that's it, basically. It's the role that Johnny Depp played. And actually, I remember the role that I almost played in. Well, I love those I almost played arts because, of course, everybody says in Nightmare on Elm Street 2, it's really famous. Of course, Brad Pitt auditioned for it, and Matt Damon auditioned for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and you know, but we all basically auditioned for the same things. There's at any given time in Los Angeles, if you're a serious player, which I was at that time, there's really only about 15 or 20 guys who are seriously being considered for any movie at any given time. So all those movies, I was very much in consideration for the lead in Weird Science. I almost did Rad, and Robert Russler did Rad. So we were all sort of interchangeable. And Robert Downey Jr., myself, Matt Damon, Brad Pitt. It was just like a big crowd. But I actually, my biggest memory about that was the casting for Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street, was done in a trailer on a lot. So it's like you just sort of have to imagine a trailer sitting there, and like a house trailer, and it's an office on the inside. And I remember sitting with Heather on on the stairs outside, and she was talking about going away to college, and she couldn't really decide whether it was a good idea for her, to go on and go to university because she was very intelligent, of course, or to do this movie. And I said, "Oh my gosh, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like you have to do the movie. You can wait to go off to college." And then it was so funny because when I did Nightmare on Elm Street 2, I had exactly the same conversation with Kim Myers, who played Lisa. And she was getting ready to go away to college, and she had to defer college for like 5 months to do Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So it was like both the girls were in the same position. And now, of course, we're all old friends, and we've all been through college. So, but yeah, and I'm really glad I didn't do the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm glad that I got to do Nightmare on Elm Street 2 because I think that's the one that was really meant for me. Uh-huh, sir. Um, People asking about John Cameron Mitchell. I love John. John's actually a very, very good friend of mine. And I worked originally with John in a movie called Misplaced. And the movie was about a young man who moved from Poland and had all kinds of problems and adjusting to life in the United States. And Vivica Lynn Force was in that movie, and it was really a beautiful, beautiful movie. And I didn't really, at that time, I didn't really know John, you know, and we started working together. And I played like this redneck, if you can imagine. I was like the bully, the heavy in this one. And then, and I really thought John was from Poland. I mean, he was so convincing. I mean, his accent and everything was just so amazing. And and then as the film ended, he sort of like came out of character. We got to know each other, and we had, you know, kind of similar backgrounds. You know, he's from a military family, and my dad was in the military for quite a long time. My father was a Marine, and his father, though my dad was a master sergeant, his father was a general, so there was a little difference there. He's a one-star general, and but we traveled the same kind of road, and then I directed John in a couple of shows in New York, and then I sort of watched Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Well, I watched the character of Hedwig like come to life because he started doing Hedwig in at like Rock and Roll Fag Bar and at you know all the like Tranny Shack and all those kind of places. So he wasn't really, you know, like a drag queen. He was just an actor, like doing drag, and like that community is really, really, really tight. So if you're not like a drag queen, you don't sing at Tranny Shack and or Rock and Roll Fag Bar. But they let him sing, and you know I'm glad they did because I think Hedwig is just amazing, amazing, amazing. I love everything that John's done. And I'm actually excited to see like Neil Patrick Harris is going to do Hedwig and the Angry Inch on Broadway this year. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to do with that and how it plays out on Broadway. So, but yeah, John's a lovely guy. He's really, really wonderful, and his partner is really super, super, super creative and talented, and he's a genius is what he is, really. So it's a pleasure to know him and really to call him a friend. The question is that what was it like for me to work with Robert Englund, and that's very easy. And the sort of follow up to that was he on the set very much? And so now I knew Robert as an actor before Nightmare on Elm Street, and I knew him before Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I mean, he was actually one of my very favorite character actors. So I saw him when I was very young in a movie called Buster and Billy, and I was amazed by him because he played an albino character, sort of like in Powder. But, and I remember, thinking as a young person, where did they find this person at? I mean, it's like, this is really difficult acting, and, to find, like a person who's that specific, like a 20-year-old albino, that's a tough casting call. And then, all these years later, it turned out it was, Robert. And so I like to say with Robert Englund and Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is something that I think is like sort of common knowledge, but not really common knowledge. And that's the fact that, Robert Englund was the last person hired for Nightmare on Elm Street 2. They were going to do the movie without him. They just were going to, they sort of do the Jason, like a different Jason for every movie so that they didn't have to pay a salary because they thought, it's just a guy in a mask. So when we first started shooting, the first person hired was Robert Russler, and I was second, and then Robert and I picked Kim Meyer, and then Kim and I picked Sidney Walsh, who played Carrie, and then Marshall Bell came on, and Clue and Hope had been put in there, and we started shooting without Robert, and we shot for 4 days without him, and then they realized they'd made a big mistake, and then they brought him in. Robert and I were on set every day. And now Robert's only in 12 minutes. He only has 12 minutes screen time in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. But his presence is felt, like completely and utterly throughout the entire movie. And I think, you know, I mean, people can agree or disagree or whatever, but I don't think Robert was ever more effective than he was in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I think everything came together for him right there. The makeup was perfect. I mean, Kevin Yeager was like a genius. The Jacques Hankin was the cinematographer for 1 and 2, and again, amazing. The music was fantastic. And even though Robert was only on screen for like 12 minutes, you felt that menacing terror throughout the whole thing, you know? And Robert's setups were so difficult, as were mine. You know, I mean, like I'm in almost in every frame of that film. So, and whenever, you know, whenever I'm inside of Freddy as opposed to him being inside of me. I always love that joke, but, you know, I always had to be on set. So, because they needed me there too. And Robert's makeup took so long that, you know, he may make up for 6.5 hours, 7 hours, and then shoot for 30 minutes, you know? So a lot of Robert Englund's stuff was shot by the second unit, what's called the second unit or the B-roll. And then my stuff was shot by the A-roll. So like I was considered the star of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I mean, that's like Heather's the star of Nightmare on Elm Street 1. It just so happened that Freddy, you know, became the most iconic villain of the 20th century. But the stars of the movie when they were being made were Heather Langenkamp and Mark Patton. So, but Robert and I are very, very dear friends. We still travel together. And we're actually the entire gang, you know, what you would consider the Nightmare on Elm Street family is really, really tight. And I think that you can see really the connection between Robert Englund and I when the scene on the, you know, the famous "You've got the body, I've got the brains." That scene, what's happening between our eyes, I think tells the whole story about Robert Englund and Mark Patton, because that's shot in very extreme close-up, and that blade is really in my eyeball. I mean, if you see it really blown up, you can see the reflection of my eye in the blade, and you can see the blade in my eye. And to be that close to somebody for that amount of time, because that took about 2 days to shoot that. You know, it's like we have tremendous respect for each other. He's always extraordinarily kind about my career whenever he talks about me. And as an actor, the same, I feel the same about him. He makes a lot more money than I make. So, you know, so when we see each other at conventions, he's signing an autograph every 15 seconds. So there's really not a lot of time until we, you know, go out and grab a drink or something or have dinner, and then everybody's really exhausted. But I love him a lot, and I want him to make lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money, so that he has, you know, that he gets the reward that he deserves for all of this, and that, you know, this part of this stage of his life will be, you know, fun and comfortable, and he gets to see the world, and it's great. So, you know, he's a wonderful man. Well, the question is what was my inspiration for the dance scene? And, you know, I'm going to probably segue a little bit in this part of the conversation, because people ask me about the dance a lot. And this is where I'm going to start to begin to sort of delve into the David Chaskin part of this interview. You know, and David, of course, was the writer of Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. And, you know, he was often asked, you know, what did you write a gay movie? And, you know, for 30 years he said no, that he didn't, that, you know, the actor, being me, he wouldn't even say my name, he just said the actor, you know, was just so gay that he gayed up the whole thing. And I carry when I go out on the road, I take an original shooting script with me. I have the original shooting script, my shooting script from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And I've Xeroxed it, and so I give people pages of it as a gift, and I sign them. And, I just put something funny on it or whatnot. And you have to sort of pick the page at random. But, I was always embarrassed by the dance until I found out that, a lot of people really loved it. And, first of all, it was in the 80s, and people really danced like that in the 80s. I mean, that's how they danced. And I was a good dancer. I wasn't like a loser dancer. But that is shot for shot is written into the script. Like in the script, it says Jesse bumps his ass against the drawer 3 times. Jesse jumps on the bed and acts like he's masturbating. The gun goes pop. The girl comes in the room. Blah blah blah. David wrote all that stuff. But in Never Sleep Again, he'll say, oh, when they show that scene, he'll say, oh, look, see, there's another choice where Mark made, to make this really gay. And I'm like, David, you wrote it, So now I kind of like I kind of like it. People ask me to dance all the time when I'm on stage and stuff. And I always tell them I only do private dances. And it costs a lot of money. So I never dance. I scream now, I didn't scream for a really long time, but now I scream for charity. And so now I'm proud of the dance. And I actually, like everybody always wants the same thing because I inherited all my props from the movie. So, and I donated a lot of them to AFI and also to the Gay and Lesbian Film Archives. But I kept some things. But what everybody always wants is those lightning bolt glasses. They're like, do you have those glasses? I really want those glasses. And I have no idea where they went. So I actually had a 3D imaging done of them, and they're being made in Mexico City right now. So I've had them recreated. So now when I go out on tour, I can actually, sign them and give them to people. So, and I had the baseball cap remade too, the red, white, and blue one. So if you come and see me on convention or you go to my website, I think those will be on the website like in the next couple of weeks or so. And it's www.mark-patton.com. And you can get that on my Facebook too. But so I just made those glasses, and we're like selling them really, cheap. Like they're just, like $10 or something. And because, so many guys especially are like, I want those sunglasses. I need those lightning bolt glasses. So I thought, well, you know what? I'm gonna make them because I really love my fans a lot. So I like to try to do everything to like make them happy. So yeah, I'm proud of it. And I didn't really have any inspiration. I was dancing to the music that was actually playing when I was dancing in the movie. I selected that movie, the original music, but they of course couldn't pay for it. It was too expensive. But when I was shooting, I was dancing to Tina Turner, a song off her Private Dancer album, and it's called Steel Claw. And I thought that was like kind of appropriate for, Nightmare on Elm Street. So if you ever want to like have fun, like look up Tina Turner and look up the song Steel Claw and then overlap it on my dance, and it syncs up just perfectly. But I like Touch Me All Night Long. So we're remastering that right now for my documentary There Is No Jesse. We're redoing all the music as trance music. So pretty soon you'll have a new version of Touch Me All Night Long to play around with. Well, the question is, actually, there was a very nice compliment there right at the beginning when the writer said that he or she believed that Nightmare on Elm Street was the best of the series. And I would almost agree with you. And like from a personal point of view, I do agree with you. I think Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is great. And you know what I think about Nightmare, and also the question is about the pool scene, which I'll get to in just a second. But One of the things that I think is really great about Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is this. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 could be a standalone movie. You really don't need the first part, and it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. So if you were just being, and a lot of people I find, that Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was actually their first experience with Nightmare on Elm Street, especially younger people. So they saw part 2 before they saw the original. And my own personal preference, I mean, just as like being like a sort of a film buff, or I don't really like to rate things too much, but my own personal, I think it's a trilogy, actually, to be quite honest with you. I think the first 3 movies are a set, and then I think from 4 on, they turn into something different. And that's because Robert takes more control of the movies, and Freddy becomes more jokey, and he becomes like almost stand up, and that's really that's wonderful, but it's not like the first 3. And for me, I think the best movie of all of the Nightmare on Elm Street is part 3. I think part 3 is the most complete, and then I think part 2 comes second, and then the original Nightmare on Elm Street is I think like my 3rd favorite, and I think that because with no disrespect to anybody, I'm really, because like all of these people are my friends, and I love them all, and I'm not Nightmare on Elm Street 1, the original, it's almost like a bit amateurish on a certain level. It was like almost everybody's first film, and they didn't know what they had on their hands, and I really think that it was really made famous, by Fred Krueger. I mean, that's what it's famous for. I mean, it was like, Dracula had been introduced to the world. And by the time, Heather did 3, and they all had their wheels underneath them. You know what I mean? Like, they had a lot more money. They didn't have any money to make Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And we, in Elm Street 2, Wes Craven did not want to do a series. He didn't want to do a franchise. He wanted it to be Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's it. So he refused to do the sequel, which is why Jack Shoulder directed it. And then when it became obvious that it was going to be, a worldwide franchise, then Wes came back in, but he just decided to pretend that part 2 never happened. And I like Wes, and I really respect him a lot. Some of my favorite movies are Wes Craven movies. But I always say, and I'm like really honest, I say it right when he's there too, I thought it was really disrespectful of him to Jack Shoulder. I thought it was disrespectful to the cast of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 to just pretend like that part 2 never happened, because you can't just say that it didn't happen, because it did. It does exist. And if Nightmare on Elm Street 2 had not been critically successful, which it was, extremely successful with like the New York Times, worldwide London Times, all the major newspapers in the world gave this really good reviews. Fangoria, not so much, right? But also, you have to remember, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 made like $40 million, which is like, at this, this would be like having, a $200 million opening. It's like, it was a big deal. And so, therefore, there would never have been a part 3 had part 2 not been really successful. So, that's a lot of what the documentary There Is No Jesse is about. Is, why did they just, why did Jesse just disappear? I mean, he didn't die, and he's just never mentioned again. And some people think that Jesse is the boy who had his eyelids sewn shut and all that kind of stuff, but that's not true. At the end of the original script for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy possesses Lisa, and Lisa kills Jesse. But it wasn't shot that way, because they wanted to keep me alive to bring me back for the sequel, for part 3. And then when Wes came in, he just pulled Heather back in, and then that was that. And and I think it was kind of, a mistake on a certain level, because I would have really liked to see, not just for the money and not just because it's me, but because I thought it would be really interesting, that like Heather inhabited the dream world and Jesse was Freddy's vessel to move into the real world. And I thought, like you could have the heroine and the hero together, and together we could have fought him and the Dream Warriors and all that. And I thought that just like made perfect sense to me. Now, the pool scene, what I remember most about the pool scene is we shot it on the 4th of July. We were in a very expensive house. And, of course, that's where I was shooting. I've got blood on my hands when I come and talk to Lisa. And that's in a real house. And I mean, I was covered with blood. And then they said to me as I go in, like, look, you can't touch the walls. Right? And the carpet was white. And, like, you don't touch anything, because if you touch anything, then we have to repaint the whole house. And I'm like, like you guys have seen me. I mean, I was drenched in blood. And if you notice when you're watching the movie, when I'm trying to, like, I never touch anything. I mean, I'll put my arm down, but I don't put my hands down. And so I just don't want to get blood on anything. But the pool scene, what was really cool about the pool scene, and this sort of I think, honestly, that You're All My Children Now for me, is the most iconic Nightmare on Elm Street image of them all. I mean, that's Freddy with his arms stretched out like Jesus Christ, and saying You're All My Children Now. I mean, for me, that's the whole ball of wax right there. But, when the whole gay thing came up, and Jack Shoulder said he didn't know, and everybody said they didn't know. I know that's true, because Jack Shoulder is a man of such integrity, and we got there to shoot the pool scene, and everybody was Caucasian. Everybody was white. And he said, he was like, literally, like, he was like, where are, like, the people of color? I mean, do you have any African Americans? Do you have any Asian people? Where are they? And they were like, oh, no. This is like, this is a horror film, and everybody in horror films is always Caucasian, right? And he was like, I won't shoot this scene until you integrate the cast. And you know what? I really loved him for that, because if you look at the pool party, it's like totally integrated. I mean, like, we have like every color of the rainbows there, and so it was fun. It was really exciting because, the pool was heated and bubbling, and the smoke was, and the trapdoors were flying. And, of course, we didn't have CGI. So we actually had to do all the stunts. I mean, there was no computer-generated action on this film at all. It was all models and acting. So, there was a trapdoor, and Robert sprung out of the trapdoor like he was on stage, and he had to fly, and it was really dangerous. And so, it was fun. I like movie making like that. Now, sometimes I love 80s horror because it's so real. And like sometimes now, even as good as the computer generation is, there's always like something a little soulless about, like, when you see 10,000 ships or something, and you're like, okay, now we've moved into the part where we're not in reality anymore. We're like, we're in make-believe land. And, sometimes our movie was put together sort of with spitballs and all that kind of stuff, but it's, we had to act, and we had to, like, sell the gag. And I think we did a pretty good job. So that's that. The question is, what brought me into acting? And, well, I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. That's where I was born and raised, pretty much. And from the time I was a little boy, I was a singer. I sang, like really heartbreaking, hateful, vitriolic, break your heart country and western kind of music, blues, gospel. And I was offered a recording contract when I was, I think, about 14. And my dad wouldn't let me take it because it meant I would have to go off and sing in bars and stuff. And he just thought I was too young. And of course I hated him. But now that I'm a grown up, I would never let a 14-year-old go off and sing in bars, and especially like at that time. But and so the singing sort of like segued into, I was a gymnast, and I went to the Junior Olympics, and I broke my leg a couple of times, and I was sort of playing around with acting. And my dad, said to me, okay, like you can sort of choose. You can either do the acting thing or you can do gymnastics. But if you do gymnastics, you're going to kill yourself. So, because I was really good, but, I broke one leg twice and the other one once. So, I was on a collision course with, my. So I just started acting in school and whatnot. And, to be really honest and frank with you, I was like, I mean, you all know me. I mean, if some of you do and some of you don't, but I looked very young, and I was like kind of a girly boy. I was like really kind of pretty, and where I came from, if you just look, everybody looked the same. So if you were just the tiniest bit different, you were sort of a target, and I was really the boy that looked like, that I should have it all. And when people would find out I was different, like I loved platform shoes, or, I didn't wear Lacoste and all that kind of stuff. And I sort of marched to a different drummer, and, I became sort of a target. And I have to say, high school was, I'm a highly intelligent person. I'm very educated. But in high school, I would say about the time that I was about 14 years old, I just stopped participating. And I moved slowly but surely to the back of the class. And I just did not want to be noticed. I didn't want anybody to like throw anything at me, to say anything to me. I didn't want to be called a fag. I just, it all became too much. And I know we all hear a lot about that stuff now. Like this poor young girl that just, like jumped off that building, But like, I understand that, you know what I mean? It's like, and thank God I didn't grow up in the age of like, 24-hour a day, social networking. But I mean, I got to the point where I'd wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to get on the bus. I don't want to go through this. I don't understand why people are doing this to me. And I really found my salvation, like many people did, in, the theater department. And I had a wonderful teacher. Her name was Mildred Bolton. And, my grades began to slide. And, I was sort of being offered scholarships to schools on my acting talent. But then they would see my transcripts, and, my parents got divorced, and when I was 15, and everything just sort of started falling through the cracks. But the theater saved me, And Miss Fulton, I went to her one day, and I just was, she was about 6 foot tall, like I don't think she was a lesbian, but she looked very lesbianish, and, big feet. And she was smoking a Virginia Slim, and I think she was drinking some rum. I'm not really sure, but we were upstairs on the side of the stage, and, she was like a mentor towards me. And I sort of started crying. I said, I really don't know what I'm going to do. I can't get into college, and, everything is just fucked up, and like this teacher hates me, and I hate going to school, and I just don't know what to do. And she said, honey, you're going to go to New York City, and you're going to be an actor. As soon as school's over, you're going to get on a plane, and you're going to get out of here. And she said, and everything's going to be okay, because you have everything you need to be an actor. You have the looks, you have the personality, you have the talent. And once you get out of here, you'll find out that you're not so different. And, this is from a spinster living in Kansas City, Missouri, and she just saved my life, and I was up for a big scholarship, which I should have won in my school. And she put the kibosh on it. She made sure I didn't get it. And nobody could understand why I didn't receive the scholarship. And I didn't understand until very later that she made sure that I didn't get stuck in some junior college, in Kansas City, and that I didn't get out. She got me to New York City. And within a very short amount of time, to be quite honest with you, I was making a fortune, because I started my career by making commercials. And, I make commercials for Coca-Cola and Pepsi, and I was the spokesman for Nestle's chocolate in all of Asia and Japan, and I made a little record in Japan, and she got me out. She saved my life, really, because I needed to get away from there, and she knew it. And so that's how I got into acting. And it's just like I went to acting classes, and before you know it, I was on Broadway. And just I moved to New York, and I flew to New York on February 18th, 1978. And I promised myself as I was getting off the plane that I would, if I didn't do something really big in 5 years, that I would go home. And now I had $132 and a one-way plane ticket to New York, right? So I didn't know anybody in New York. I'd never been to New York. I'd never been on a plane. I was like a rube, right? But to cut to the chase, I opened on Broadway. My opening night on Broadway was February 18th, 1982. So that was 5 years to the day. And I thought, oh, okay, well, there's a good sign, and now I have, in my house, I have the plane ticket and my opening night program are framed together. And I landed in New York at 7:30 at night, and the curtain went up on Broadway that opening night at 6:30. So the critics could do it. So, that it's like, I have a lot of magical moments in my life, and that was one of them. And so that's how I got into it. And now it's defined my whole life. Thanks for that question. I really appreciate it. The question was, what current projects am I doing, and what's on the boards for me, and what's happening. Guys, I have to be really honest with you. It's like, in the back of my head, I quit acting a long time ago, and I really never thought about it. It's like, I don't want to say I never thought about it, but I went on to have a, very successful career in a totally different field. I quit acting after Nightmare on Elm Street, pretty much, because of the reaction to the film, like all the gay stuff. I was like, I don't need this. I don't like, it's obvious everybody thinks I'm a big old fag, so, I'll just go and be a big old fag where everybody likes fags, and, I'll be like an interior decorator or something. And I was really successful at that. But always in the back of my head, there was this little voice, and the little voice would say, show business is not through with you yet. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. And I would Google myself once in a while, and say, oh, look, there's me. But I didn't have any idea, and I'm being honest with you, I didn't understand the cult of Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't know there were conventions. I didn't know any of this world really existed. And I moved to Mexico, full time. I've lived in Mexico for 7.5 years, right? So my sister-in-law got a call from the people that Never Sleep Again, and they had been looking for me for 2 years. And because I wasn't a member of the union any longer, I didn't leave forwarding addresses, and they called. It was their last telephone call, and they found a friend of mine in Florida who called my sister-in-law, who called me. And 3 days before they finished shooting Never Sleep Again, I talked to Tommy. And the next day, Hector and I, that's my partner, we flew to Los Angeles, and I shot Never Sleep Again. And I had said to them, it's like, I'll come back and do this for you, but if I do it, I'm going to tell the story the way I believe that it happened. So, and what happened to me? And they said, oh, we want you to tell the truth. So, the first thing I said is, oh, David Chaskin's a liar. And so they had to bring him back in, and he had to admit that, yes, he did write this as a gay movie, and he went through his whole little song and dance. And then they signed me to a contract. They said, they call you the Greta Garbo of horror. So everybody wants your autograph, so you want to go on tour. And so, I went off like to Amsterdam and Germany and London, and I've been all over the world and all over the United States. And I filmed a movie. Somebody wrote a movie for me, and I filmed that movie in Berlin. And the movie is called Night. And it's basically it's sort of like Camille Keaton's movie, I Spit on Your Grave. But it takes place in 2013. And I'm the Camille Keaton character. And I seem to get raped in everything I do, if somebody wants to rape me. And It's a very, very violent, very, very dark movie, and I don't know if it'll ever come out, and I'm not sure if I really ever want it to, because Camille and I are really good friends, and I know the reaction my fans to me have to me right now, but I mean, this is a very dark, dark movie, and I was really happy to do it, and I might be happy for it not to see the light of day, but we'll see. But right now we're in pre-production for a thing called There Is No Jesse, which is a documentary about Jesse, and it's a really, really intriguing documentary. Originally, my friends from Never Sleep Again were going to do it, and then it just didn't feel right, you know, and I just waited for the right people to come along, and some people from PBS came and they talked to me. And I don't really want to tell you what the documentary is about because it's it's a like, excuse my language, it's a fucking trip. I mean, it really is. It will kind of blow your mind when you see it. We've done some of the pre-shots. We're in pre-production, and we're all fully funded, but we're going to do an Indiegogo, like a crowd thing for an extra $25,000 for the music rights, because we want to buy the music from Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and have it remixed as a house album, a trance album. So sort of, you really like trance music, but I don't really want to talk about it so much more than that. Just to say that, like, really keep your eyes peeled, and when the Indiegogo goes up, please give me money, because it's what you get for your money is in Nightmare on Elm Street, when Lisa's mom says, "Hey Lisa, there's a Jesse on the phone," all of my horror homos, that's what I call them, like that, that's Jesse is a slang for a gay guy now where I come from, and we're going to, at the end of the movie, we're going to have a file of Jesse's, and it's going to be all actors who made one or two movies but then disappeared, and mostly because they were gay or they died, and then we're going to let people bequeath money for this music to friends of theirs who passed away or who had movie careers. And we want to show the boys when they're like 18 years old, 19 years old. So at the end of the movie, it's going to be, your photo will be there, and it'll be like a yearbook. And it's like, we already have like a couple of hundred Jessies, and they're from all over the world. I mean, I've interviewed people from Poland, from Russia, from Japan, so many from the United States, from the UK, and they're all guys and some girls who really, really, really identified with Jesse. And they either felt like Jesse was a friend of theirs, or they were Jesse, or Jesse was their boyfriend or something. And this whole movie is really dedicated to them. So that's what you get for your like $25 or whatever. It's like you get that picture at the end in memoriam. But again, like I said, it's like, it won't be anything like you think. It's not I Am Nancy. It is not. It's not Never Sleep Again. It's an acid trip is what it is, to be really honest with you. So we're doing that, and I have a 2-book deal. I'm writing a book about Come Back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean right now, and it's called Sincerely Mark. I was there too, and it begins the day that I first auditioned for Jimmy Dean. And it ends the day that Robert Altman called cut for the final time on the movie. It's just 1 year. And it's told through my eyes, the 23-year-old boy's eyes of, I loved Cher since I was a little kid. She became my best friend. And she introduced me to everybody in the world, I mean, you can just imagine, it's like sitting backstage and doing your show, and you walk off the stage and David Bowie's sitting there, and he wants to give you a kiss because he loves you so much, and he's going to play the part that Karen Black is playing, and I met the Rolling Stones. I met, just everybody. I mean, like Greta Garbo, Gloria Swanson, Louise Brooks was the first woman to win an Academy Award. Elizabeth Taylor, came and sat in my dressing room with me and told me all about James Dean. They flew James Dean's drama coach in from Indiana, and she spent 2 weeks with me. And Karen Black and I played the same person. So Karen would call me on the phone every night so she could listen to my voice. And everybody's died except for me and Cher and Kathy Bates. And so that's why I wrote this book. And I'm sort of like, it's funny that you guys mentioned John Cameron Mitchell, because I sort of feel like I'm going to be like Hedwig, because I'm going to be doing PBS shows wherever Cher's tour is. So if she's like in London, I'm going to be on the radio of the BBC and doing an interview and selling books, right? So I feel like I'm in the Holiday Inn and she's over in the the arena. But she's a wonderful gal. I love her a lot, and she's still really, very kind to me. She always has been. So that, and then the next book, I have a contract for 2, and then the next one is about Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's called Scream, Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's really sort of like, if any of you are familiar with Allison Ingram, who played Nellie Olson on Little House on the Prairie. She wrote a book called Confessions of a Prairie Bitch, and this book is very much like that. It's, it's a lot about the filming of the movie and all that kind of fun stuff, and then it's also about like what's going on backstage and like what's going on in my life, and then it continues on and it ends with the movie, and then it includes my comeback and how I've like sort of used Nightmare on Elm Street as a platform for talking about bullying and talking about homophobia in Hollywood. And then finally this last year talking about HIV and, being a person who's HIV positive and talking about that, and, when I announced that this year in The Advocate, it's actually on the stands this month, I thought, it's not really that big a deal, but it was something I felt like I wanted to talk to the horror community. And I had let them know me as a really healthy person. But I had been very, very sick. I mean, I almost died. So I wanted to show them, and I wanted to talk to these people who maybe didn't have so much connection to the gay community or didn't have this information about HIV. And I wanted to tell them, hey, look, you know what? You may be like the straightest guy in the world, but you're still at risk for HIV too. You just don't know it. And so when I announced this, it got picked up by CNN and CNN International and the Huffington Post and the New York Times, and it just went viral around the world. And they changed my wiki page, and I looked on it, and all of a sudden it said, I was a noted person in the world living with HIV. And I thought, well, I'll just look and see, who my other friends are, right? And I thought there would be thousands and thousands of people, but there weren't. There were 109 in the entire world. And I'm the only actor in the world who's said, that I'm HIV positive. And so now I've been picked up as one of the spokesmen for the Body Politic, which is one of the largest HIV information hubs in the world. I travel all over the place and I talk about this. I just did a big interview with Sirius. It's going to be all over the world. It's on every channel in Sirius. And, I'm talking to guys like you, who are out there listening, it's like, just like HIV comes, in from blood to blood contact. And no matter who you are, you know what I mean? I always say to people, and this is the serious part, I talked about Nightmare on Elm Street for a long time, so this is going to be my one little serious moment here. It doesn't matter who you are, and no matter how much you trust your partner, whether you're straight, gay, whatever, doesn't matter. Okay, no matter how much you trust your partner, right? Always take care of yourself, right? Because the only person, and I know it sounds horrible, but the only person that you can really trust is you, right? So, it sounds like a drag and it sounds boring sometimes, but use a condom. Always go to the doctor. And there's a lot of bad things out there. And if you're really a smart guy or girl, you never, ever, ever, ever have to experience that kind of hell, And it is hell. and I'm well, and I'm healthy, and all that kind of stuff, and I have a wonderful life, and I'm really, really blessed. But I had 3 years of hell. I mean, where I just thought, everybody thought, this boy's dead. And, it's no fun to have cancer. It's no fun to have tuberculosis. It's no fun to have pneumonia. It's no fun to think you're going to die when you're 35 years old, So that's what I go out and I talk about. And I'll talk about Coach Snyder all you want me to, and I'll talk about Robert England all that you want me to. If you'll just give me that 1 second to say, I love my fans a lot, and they've been very good to me, and everybody's so respectful of me, and I want to respect you by being really honest with you. And I just want you to know that in my heart, I love you enough that I'm willing to say this kind of stuff and expose myself in this way so that none of you ever have to go through this. Okay? So that's the dum part. So I'm sure we got another fun question, eh? Oh, okay. So all of you guys are being really nice to me and saying really nice things about how brave I am and all that kind of stuff, and that you really support me, and I love you all for that. And it's and the question was asked, did I know if this was a groundbreaking thing? And I'm going to share with you a little passage from the book, and it's just I'm just paraphrasing myself, but this is the way that it goes, right? When I made Nightmare on Elm Street 2, I was on my way to being a very, very big star. And I had, and not being vain, I had everything that you needed. I was a beautiful young man. I had a lot of confidence. I was very talented. And I had a natural gift that I just, believe is, sort of a gift from God. And I mean, either you are or you ain't, and I always say that with it's the same with singers. You know what I mean? Either singers can sing or they can't. I mean, they might sing jazz or they might sing opera or they might sing country, but when you hear a singer, you know that person can sing. And I believe the same is true with actors, It's when you see an actor who was born to act, it's you know it, you know what I mean? And I believe I was one of those people. And when I realized when all this gay stuff started coming up about Nightmare on Elm Street, it just destroyed my confidence. I have to be very honest with you. It destroyed my belief in myself that I could appear to be quote unquote normal, right? And I just said, and I sort of said, fuck it, you know what I mean? And there were a lot of people dying around me at the time from HIV and stuff. And I just said, you know what? I don't need this, I mean, I want it so badly and I really feel like it's supposed to be mine, but I won't do this, I won't whore myself in this way, right? I would whore myself in other ways, but, because I like to have fun, but I wouldn't whore my integrity this way. And I've said many, 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 many times, why God, why? Why me? Why did David Chaskin do that to me? It was such an asshole thing to do. Because he was rewriting the script as we went along. And it's why? I don't know if he's gay. I don't know what his story is. But why did he do this to me? And his friend was my friend. And Donald, who was the set designer, told me the whole story. And what he did to me was very mean and very low. And it destroyed my career. And I said, God, why? And as time went by, I would ask that question. And then I stopped seeking. You know what I mean? I stopped looking. I got very sick. I stopped looking. I moved to Mexico, and I always thought, oh, I'm going to be in show business still. But when I moved to Mexico, I said, you know what? That's it. There's a period on that sentence. That dream has flown. This is a fantasy. And I'm sitting in my gallery, minding my own business in Mexico, in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And the call comes to come back to Hollywood. Somebody's looked for me for 2 years as a private detective to find me to be in this documentary, which reignites this whole situation, and is why I'm talking to you now. And I said, why me? You know? And I thought, well, okay, they're going to do this. Well, I'm going to use this little bit of fame and I'm going to squeeze everything out of it I can to talk about things that are important to me, you know? And this brought me fame. And then the question was answered to me personally inside my own heart, and this was the answer, right? And I'll say like God, because God's an easy thing to say, but you like access it however you like. I sort of heard a little voice inside of my head that said, look, I made you really famous with 2 movies. You know, Nightmare on Elm Street and Come Back to the Five and Dime Jimmy Dean were filmed 30 years ago, and you're famous. And then I let you get sick, and I gave you a private place to get well, because I could have never done this in public. I could have never suffered the humiliation of being as ill as I was in public. And then the voice kind of said, and now I gave you a comeback. You know, I made you famous again, right? And I gave you a rock to stand on, and I gave you a voice to speak with, and I expect you to tell a story. And that's what I'm doing, you know? I believe that this was my purpose. I believe that's why I did Nightmare on Elm Street. I believe it all fits together perfectly like a glove. And I really feel like a glove, right? Like a glove. It fit me just like that glove fit me. And I go out on convention tours and I talk to people and I tell my story and we have a lot of fun and Robert Russler and I do our thing and everybody loves it. And then I tell this, and then people stand in line with me in my line, you know, and they say, you know, people like the really gnarly guy that you just wouldn't expect to be there, you know, and the guy said, you know what, I don't want your autograph. I don't need it, you know. I just want to shake your hand and I want to talk to you and I want to give you some money for the Trevor Project. Because, you know what, my brother died of AIDS and my family never talked about it. Or a girl would come up to me and say, you know, my boyfriend from high school, you know, he moved to San Francisco and we never heard from him again. And I'm just in such grief about it. And like I direct these people to like places like the Trevor Project or It Gets Better, and you know, all the other actors are standing around looking at my like booth and my line going like, what in the fuck is going on over there? You know, it's like a church or something. But it's very profound. And I just feel like, you know, like it sort of just started, you know? And like this, There Is No Jesse, like I said, is an acid trip. And you will enjoy it. And I know you will see it. So I didn't know what was happening. I just thought I was a victim of something. And I found out that I really wasn't a victim of anything. Like one of the things that I do, and I'm really, really proud of this, right, is we take things that people said about me on the internet and like, say in the 80s, and like, you know, Jesse's a homo or Mark's a bag or whatever, any of those kind of things. And we made a whole series of t-shirts out of them. So like Jesse's a Homo is a big seller for me. I do Jesse's a Homo t-shirts and we sell them for $25 and all the money goes to the Trevor Project, right? Which is gay and lesbian suicide prevention. And what I do is I take the words and the nasty things that people said about me and I say it's like I take the bricks that people threw at me and I turned them into a really solid foundation, you know? And I was not smart enough to figure this out. You know, but I did, and we've donated thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to the Trevor Project. You did, the guys who bought the T-shirts, and the people who like asked for the autographs. And when I scream for charity, and people throw $1 in the box, and you know we raise $500 or $600, and you know, and it's like, you know, and I have so much fun, and it's like it's been so kind of healing for me because like all the people that I was really afraid of, like when I was growing up, like the heavy metal, headbanging kind of dudes that I was like sort of terrified of, although I wasn't as scared of them as I was the jock kind of people, because deep down inside they were the most terrifying, nightmarish people of all. The other people just turned out to be a bunch of nerds and dorks and misfits. That's what I found out going on the convention circuit, is most of those people, whatever their sexuality, felt just as dorkish as I did. Like they felt like they didn't fit in. And they were just a bunch of weirdos, you know? And so we're just a bunch of weirdos all like kind of like giving each other like props and saying, and those were the people I was afraid of. And those are the people that are the kindest to me now, you know? Because nobody ever says, I never hear, well, Tuesday night would kick your ass if you said anything about me. But I never hear somebody call me a fag, or, I mean, they might say things when they're way, way far away, but they sure don't say them around my fans, and they don't say them to my face. And I don't think that very many people disrespect me. I think they actually do respect me, and I think they respect what I'm doing. And I've given a face, you know, to the gay horror fan. You know, I am Jesse. You know, I really am Jesse. Jesse is me. That's who I am. You know, and I'm so proud of it. You know, I mean, I really am. I'm proud to be sitting here talking to you tonight. I was proud to talk to CNN. I was proud to talk to Sirius. I will talk to any little local radio show in the world, you know, because I really feel like I have a cool message and I have a lot of fun. And people pay me money for me to sign an autograph. You know what I mean? And they fly me and they put me in a first class hotel room. That's why I'm always really good to my fans. Because I tell the other guys that are out on the tour, look, if you don't want to go out and treat the fans right, then don't go. You know? Don't take their money and then treat them like they're assholes. Because they're not. Because the reason you're sitting in that chair is those people on the other side of the table. You know, if you can't get it together to act like a movie star, to act like your character, to act like what the people want you to be, then just don't do it. Stay home. You know, go get a job someplace else. But don't take $50 from them and then say, you know, okay, I don't want to sign your thing. Get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. You know, because I think the people that are the coolest people in the conventions are like, yeah, sure, Robert Englund is great. And I love Robert. When you see Robert, you pay $100 and you get to see him for 15 seconds and that's it, right? The people that really make the conventions cool are people like Linnea Quigley, me, PJ Souls, Amanda Weiss, those kind of people, because we'll sit and talk to you for a half an hour or an hour. We don't care. We love talking to you, you know? And we're glad to tell you stories, and we're, you know, when you give us $20, you know, to sign an autograph, we're thrilled, we're humbled. Ken Sagos, you know, I love Ken, you know. Ken's not a rich guy, you know, but he gives most of his money to charity. And he will talk to you all night long and be really happy to do it. And I think that's what makes the conventions. I think that's what makes the horror, you know. It's not the big star. The big star is great. It's great to see Jamie Lee Curtis or whoever. But the people that you're really going to spend most of your time with are like the guys who've made one or two movies, or the character actors, or Sid Haig, or, you know. And so, and I have a lot of fun when I go. Like, I'm going to South Texas HorrorCon this weekend. I've never signed in Texas, and I'm like really excited. I'm like, they just sent me a list and said, what do you want to eat, like, every day? And like, I'm having barbecue and pizza and all the things I can't get down here in Mexico. No Mexican food. And then, you know, and I'm having breakfast with people, and I'm doing radio interviews, and I'm just having fun, you know, and I'm getting paid for it. So it's fantastic. You know, like, life's really good to me. So no, I didn't have a clue it was going to work out this way. And I still think one of these days you're going to turn on CNN and Anderson Cooper is going to say to me, Mark, you know, how did it feel to be bullied? Because I just think, like, I don't know, it's weird, but I just think that's the next step, you know? So don't be surprised if you turn on CNN and I'm talking to Anderson Cooper, you know? So that's it. That's the answer to that question. Well, thank you so much. I'll bring, you know what, I love you all for saying all those nice things about me. You're wonderful. Come and see me on Facebook because it's a lot of fun on my Facebook. It's just Mark Patton. And then I'll come back. I promise. I promise I'll come back when there is no Jesse's rolling. And I'll bring Robert Ressler and Kim Meyer and maybe Clue and a couple of other people with me. And we'll have a little Nightmare on Elm Street 2 reunion just for you guys. Okay? Promise. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. It was a pleasure. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much.